Okay. So we are in Kuf Yutes, 119. Last week we were finishing up the letter Tzadi, and so I want to quickly finish that up before we start Kuf. So so we were in the pasuk Tzidkascha tzedek la'olam. Your righteousness is everlasting righteousness for Seirascha emes, and your Torah is truth. So I'm going to just repeat what I said last week from this pasuk. That this pasuk is one of the three psukim that is said on Shabbos afternoon at mincha time. This is the third one. Finishes with the word emes. So all three psukim have the word sidkascha, your righteousness, and this one finishes with the word emes. Torah is emes. We say about Hashem's name is that his signature is emes. Um, that that the three letters of the word emes is actually aleph is the very first letter of the Torah. Mem is the of the aleph base. Mem is the middle letter of the aleph base, and taf is the final letter of the aleph base. So these are tzidkascha tzedek la'olam. Your righteousness is there forever. V'seirascha emes, and your Torah is emes, beginning, middle, and end. And it actually says that someone who is careful with eating something on Shabbos afternoon, Shalosh Shuddas, such a person is going to protect themselves from the three difficulties of our time. In other words, the pains of what we call Chevle Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach, also the war of Gog and Magog, and also the troubles with of or the corrective pain of Gehenna. So we spoke about that a little bit last week. Just to finish off this pasuk. So what is tzidkascha? Has in it the word tzedakah, your kindness. And what are Hashem's kindnesses that David HaMelech is talking about here? So the Medrash Tehilim says that Hashem's kindness is that he promised David HaMelech that there would always be kings coming from David, even if his descendants didn't necessarily deserve these kindnesses. They would he would keep the line of kingship through David, and there were some pretty rough times where the kings came from David and didn't really deserve it. But this is a promise to David, so that Mashiach would be guaranteed that Mashiach would come from him. Another explanation on this concept of tzidkas tzedek, that your righteousness is righteous, again from the word tzedakah, is that a person, and this is for all of us, not just for David HaMelech, a person always has to have the feeling that everything he has comes from Hashem. Any success he has from Hashem, and that way he can also blame any unsuccess that he has on Hashem. And the third comment on this is that this is a pasuk that is teaching us how to, or these few words are teaching us how to become this tzaddik, right? We're talking about the letter tzaddik, and how do we become this person? And so David HaMelech explains. He says it's so much easier to go connect with Hashem when we're having difficulties than when everything is going well. Because when everything is going well, we become very complacent, very relaxed. When things are hard, then it's actually generally easier to connect with Hashem. We always joke, and it's not a funny joke. We just use the word joke. Like when someone comes to shul who hasn't come for months or years or whatever, only ever comes when they have a yahrzeit or something like that. When you see them in shul, then our wonder, the thing that we like asking ourselves is, what's wrong? Okay, what happened? Why are they suddenly why are they suddenly here? And inevitably, unfortunately, it is correct that we turn to Hashem much more when we are squeezed, as he says in Pasuk Kuf Mem Gimel, Tsar umatzaik matzaoni. When distress and anguish overtake me, mitzvaysecha sha'ashua. I find I find pleasure in your mitzvahs. And so at a David HaMelech level, this is talking about all the troubles that David is facing, his enemies, his wars, his illness, his whatever happened to him, or threats that he got, and just suffering from being the persecuted nation. How did he cope with it? How did he deal with it? Mitzvah shashuai. He found pleasure in doing mitzvahs, and he's giving us this. He's giving us this advice that when things are difficult, when we feel tsaru matzaik, when we feel distress and anguish, then we can get comfort from getting involved in Torah and mitzvahs. And the Medrash on Tehilim um, says it makes a strange comment on this. Says that Moshe Rabbeinu promised the Yidden that just as misfortune happened to them, so Hashem will keep His promise, and good will happen to us as well. And the commentaries who talk about the Medrash Tehillim say, "What a funny comment! Like, what a strange comment! Just as bad things happen to you, so good things happen to you." And the Chazal explain the Medrash by saying to us that it gives us hope, because when there is tsaru matzaik, when we are distressed, when we are squeezed, when we do have anguish, we notice it right away. We feel it. We notice it. We sad about it. We panic. All of that. So if we have a promise that just as that we see it happening, we feel it. So we have a promise then that Moshe Rabbeinu told us that just as difficult things happen, challenges happen, so good all the good things, the promises that Hashem made will also happen, and that sha'ashua that gives us comfort, it gives us pleasure, it gives us hope, which is the main important thing. And David HaMelech actually expresses this concept in a few different places. Actually, even in this parak of Tehillim, he says earlier on, "Lulei seirascha sha'shuai," if not for your Torah, where I find pleasure. In other words, David HaMelech is saying, like, life is hard, challenges happen, crises happen, difficulties. What lets me carry on? What allows me to have hope and believe that things will be good and things will be fine is Torah and mitzvahs, like connecting at that level. And the Mepharshim tell us, and even more contemporary discussions tell us examples, stories of people who were really kept up their hope because of being involved in Torah and mitzvahs. So I think one that's so applicable today, it's Chaf Av, it's the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father. And one of the most well-known, often told stories is about how when he was in exile in Siberia, his wife came and she made him ink. She gathered berries and she made him ink so that he could write his Torah things in the books that he had, the few books that he had, he used those, like wherever there was an empty space, and he wrote his chidushim, his Torah thoughts there. And it's always like been a story that I grew up with, and now see how it connects up with this. What was such a big deal that she made ink for him? Like she also made him supper every day, and she what is, why do we keep on saying it was so amazing of her that she made him ink? And here, say the commentaries or the people who speak about these stories, it's telling us something much deeper. We have no idea the level of hopelessness that could have overtaken the Reb Levi Yitzchak and his wife. In fact, it says he was treated so badly there that when his wife came to join him in exile, and he came to the station to meet her, she didn't recognize him. That's how badly he had been beaten, and he hadn't had food, and gotten thin, and he was sick and whatever. And what did she do for him? She said, "Be involved in Torah." She gave him ink so that he could write Torah thoughts, and that's exactly she went like on what thought, like David HaMelech, which is um, when tsar umatzak, when anguish, when difficulties find me, then if I get involved in your Torah, Shashua, I find pleasure. I can survive. And so that story that she gave him ink in order to write his Torah thoughts, that is actually what kept him alive, right? That kept him able to find pleasure and to have hope. And we have sorry, we have countless stories of people in the Holocaust who were able to stay alive because they were doing some mitzvah. They were doing something. They Rabbi Mendel Kaplan told us a story when he was here about a Holocaust survivor who he said, how did he survive? There was an older man there who every night when they would all go to sleep would tell them Torah stories, just halachas, anything he remembered from before. And they knew they were taking a risk to be learning, but that was what gave them highs. It gave them the courage to carry on. And I think, I mean, there's countless stories like that, but we've seen it even in our own last year or so, where the hostages came out, and particularly the one girl who said, while I was there in Gaza in the tunnels, I started keeping Shabbos. I started saying brachos for food. And I made commitments, of mitzvahs. It's not just about bribing Hashem. It also is what gave her the courage to carry on every single day, to carry on and carry on and carry on despite the things around her. So, like for us, it's not huge things, hopefully, but whatever it is, when we need comfort, when we need to survive the crises of the moment, David HaMelech is giving us the suggestion: get involved in Torah and mitzvahs. Okay, it's like do something involved in Torah and mitzvahs. And he finishes the tzadi psukim, tzedek eidveisecha la'olam, your righteousness um, are there forever. Havineni ve'echye. Let me understand them so that I can live. And this is the Malbim points out over here. He says, we believe that what Hashem is doing, whatever crises and challenges we're facing, Hashem is tzedek eidveisecha. Hashem will learn Torah and we'll believe and we'll trust, and please God, we'll all go right. But there's something David HaMelech is adding here. He's asking, Havineni ve'echye. Let me understand it and I will live. And one of the most difficult things that we have with crises, with challenges, is not understanding. If we understood what was going on, it would be so much easier. Doesn't say it would be nicer, but it would be so much easier to understand. I remember once my cousin telling me she was struggling to find a shidduch for her daughter, and she said to me, I don't mind if Hashem wants her to have to wait a long time for a shidduch. Of course, I want her to get married now, but if he would just tell me when, we could live nicely now, knowing that there's not going to be a shidduch for the next however many years, and then we'll have a shidduch, right? So we won't be happy to hear that, but vayachya, we could live in the meantime. And this is not her original thought. It comes straight from David HaMelech. He says, Havineni, let me understand what you're doing, vayachya, so that I can live, and while I'm waiting for the brachas which we've been promised. And that finishes the tzadi psukim. And now, just looking at the time, I thought that was going to be so quick, like in a minute or two, and then okay, and then we got onto the kufs. So kuf, when my children were growing up, they had Aleph Bay's tape. Remember those things, cassette tapes, and it said Kuf is for kugel, and kugel starts with kuf. That's like, so whenever I see the letter kugel, kuf, I say kuf is for kugel. Cool. So, but actually, the Gemara says kuf is for kedusha, is for holiness, and the Gemara actually tells that it was the children of Yerushalayim who said that. They asked the children of Yerushalayim, "What is kuf? What does kuf stand for?" And they responded that kuf is for kedusha, is for holiness. So, the first two verses of the psukim to do with kuf. I'll read them and then we'll talk about them. Karasi b'chalev, I called out with my whole heart. Aneni Hashem, answer me Hashem. Chukecha etzera, and I will cherish your chukim, your statutes. Karasicha, I called out to you. Hashieni, save me. Ve'eshmara edesecha, and I will keep your edus, your testimonies. So these two psukim are about calling out to Hashem. Karasi, and the second one, Karasicha, I call to you. And what is David HaMelech doing in the first one? He says, Hashem, I call to you. How did I call to you? B'chol leiv, with my whole heart. And what do I want from you now? Aneni, answer me. And then the promise, Chukecha etzera, I'll keep all your chukim. And the same, very similar idea in the second pasuk. I called out to you, and what did I say? I said, Hoshieni, save me, ve'eshmarei etzera, and I'll keep your edus. So we want to understand what is David actually saying, and why the double psukim. So the first thing we have is that David HaMelech is teaching us karasi. When we are in this position of crises, of challenge, of difficulty, our response to that, our immediate response to that should be karasi. Call out to Hashem. Call out, turn to Hashem. Don't be shy. Call out to Hashem. And here he tells us how. He says, call out b'chol leiv, with your whole heart, and we have to understand what that means. And then David HaMelech says, and most importantly, what I'm asking for is Aneni Hashem, answer me. And Chukecha etzera, I will cherish, I'll be able to keep your Torah. So we want to understand here what David is doing. He says, I call out to Hashem b'chol leiv, with my whole heart. And immediately the Mefarshim discuss this concept of what he says, karasi b'chol leiv, call out with your whole heart. And the first commentary that almost all the books bring over here is from the Medrash Tehilim, and suddenly tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu. Tells us not about Moshe Rabbeinu, about Shmuel Hanavi. It tells us that Shmuel said to the people, "I know you want something from Hashem. If you want something from Hashem, I'm prepared to daven for you, but you have to do b'chol leiv. You've got to be with your whole hearts." And then all the commentaries discuss what does it mean to turn to Hashem with your whole hearts. And now there's a whole lot of different opinions of what this actually means. Turn to Hashem with your whole hearts. So the first explanation that we are going with, this concept of turning to Hashem with your whole heart, is actually be there, being involved in your turning to Hashem. So here, David HaMelech is telling the people, I'm going to daven on your behalf. Or the Medrash Tehilim, which I just quoted, is Shmuel Hanavi telling the people, I'm going to daven on your behalf. And this is actually one of the sources that we have for turning to a tzaddik, turning to somebody greater than us, to daven on our behalf, to go talk to Hashem on our behalf. And David HaMelech is telling us, even if someone else is davening on your behalf, we have to be there b'chol leiv, with our whole hearts. A very famous story with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov used to fabreng, or sit with his chassidim on Shabbos after he finished davening, and he used to daven much longer than the people. So the people used to finish davening, and then they used to wait and wait and wait for the Baal Shem Tov, and they decided that they are not going to be silly anymore. They're going to go home for lunch. when they timed a few times how long the Baal Shem Tov davens for, and then they'll be back in time. When they come back, the Baal Shem Tov will be finishing off, and then they'll fabring with the Baal Shem Tov. So that was their plan for that week, and off they went to have their lunch or socialize or whatever they decided to do. And when they came back in the time that it always took the Baal Shem Tov to daven, he wasn't there. He was finished davening and went home. Say like, what happened? So the Baal Shem Tov said to them, all the weeks I managed to daven because you were here in the next room. You weren't davening, but you were present. You wanted me to daven. You wanted me to daven on your behalf, and you were there. Your physical presence gave me the koyach. It gave me the strength, the ability to daven. When you all went home, I didn't have that koyach anymore, and so I also went home, finished davening, and went home. I think of that like little people like us or whatever, and we want somebody great to daven on our behalf, and we actually physically have to show up. Okay, so a person can't think to themselves, well, you know what, let the community daven, and I'll just stay home and read a novel, and please God, it'll be good. The community is davening. So clearly, what David Amelech is saying to us over here is that we need to be present as well, even if there are greater people than us who are davening. We need to be around when someone is davening. We need to be around when someone is teaching. We need to be around. It was a big lesson for me many years ago when I was in seminary, and the Rebbe used to speak every Shabbos afternoon, and my big Yetzirah wasn't so interested in being there every single Shabbos afternoon and not being able to go with my friends, sleep, whatever else I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, if I go for a little bit, that's also okay, right? And as I'm getting older, but I know it's not okay. It wasn't okay. Whether or not I understood or wanted or whatever, when we want great things to happen, we have to be physically present at for that greatness to happen. And so that's the first comment on the be there with your whole heart. Another opinion of what does it mean to be there b'chol leiv, with your whole heart, says Rashi, b'shnei yitzarecha, with your two yitzers, your two inclinations. So we all think that we have to use all our Yetzer Tov to make us daven, to make us learn, to make us do good things. And comes along David HaMelech, and he says, no, you've got to connect with Hashem, not just with all the positive and the good and the things, but b'chol leiv, even with your negative traits, even with your challenging circumstance, whatever it is that you didn't see as good reason and good way to daven, still karasi, you've got to call out to Hashem b'chol leiv, with everything that you are. That's how you have to do. Another opinion of what does it mean b'chol leiv says with all your emunah, b'chol leiv, to turn to Hashem with complete and absolute emunah and belief. And how do we have real emunah? So real emunah is when we turn to Hashem, karasi, when we turn to Hashem, b'chol leiv, with our whole heart. In other words, we believe that Hashem is in charge absolutely and completely, it's not just me, and I don't have any real part in it. Sorry, I'm just believing that Hashem is in charge. Very famous story with a Maggid, that person came to him. He had just gotten terrible news, and he came to the Maggid to ask for bracha, that he should be well, that he should, everything should turn out good. And the Maggid said to him, and he asked the Maggid, he said, tell me where I should go. Which are the best doctors? Who should I ask to daven for me? How should I go forward? And the Maggid told him to go to a village in a distant place. And he said, such a village. And he says, over there they have one of the best doctors, somebody who will really, really help you. And he was so surprised. This village was such a small, obscure village. He didn't know where's like who's he going to find there. But if that's what the Maggid told him, off he goes, and he travels for hours, and he gets to the place, and it's a tiny little village, with a cafe and nothing, nothing big. And he asks like, "Where's the hospital? Where's the doctor's rooms?" And the people look at him like he really crazy. And they said to him, "Sir, we haven't got a doctor, and we haven't got a hospital, and we have a." So eventually he says to the different people who he's asking to, they don't understand. So what do you guys do when you're sick? And he said, and the man responds, "We daven." So we trust. Okay, we daven. That's what the Maggid was telling me. That the biggest doctor, the biggest help that I'm going to get, the best help I'm going to get is if I can turn to Hashem and daven. And that's when the Maggid used this pasuk, and he said, um, "Karasi." Called out, says David HaMelech, b'chol leiv, with my whole heart. I knew that, of course, we obligated to go to doctors and find the best and whatever. But the main thing that we have to do is we have to believe absolutely and completely that Hashem is in charge, and no one else is in charge, and He can do. He's Kol Yachol, He can do whatever He wants, and we just got to make Him, and we got to make Him want. And the words at the end of this pasuk, where he says, "Chukecha etzera," I will keep your mitzvahs. He's telling us, says the Meiri, that David is asking for whatever he asks for, not as a selfish request, but so that we can keep Torah and mitzvahs. And it's one of the things I was actually discussing with one of my classes this week, is that we have to tell Hashem that if He wants us to do Torah and mitzvahs, He has to make it easier for us to do Torah and mitzvahs. Give us a good life, give us a nice life, make us have all our needs taken care of, so that we can we can keep your Torah, keep your mitzvahs, and this goes into that idea that what does it mean b'chol leiv? So it explains to us that sometimes we struggle to connect with Hashem because we are so full of other stuff. We have so many distractions because we're worried how we're going to pay the rent, and we're worried how we're going to fetch the child from school, and we're worried about who we need to invite, what we need to do, and we have so many things filling our heads and our hearts. David HaMelech says, you want to connect with Hashem, Karasi b'chol leiv, I want to call to you with my whole heart, without any distractions and worries and troubles that I have. I want to turn to you, Hashem, absolutely and completely. And then he says, Aneni Hashem. Hashem, promise me that you will answer me. And the Arizal says, is asking Hashem that it shouldn't be that I just get random answers that like through a malach or through a whatever, but I want Aneni Hashem. I want you, Hashem, to personally answer me. And which name of Hashem are we calling on over here? The Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, which is the name of kindness. And that's our request to Hashem. Answer me with a name of kindness. In other words, give me the answer that I'm looking for. And we have a promise, and this is a theme that David HaMelech uses over and over. If we turn to Hashem in truth, Hashem will answer us. It's a promise. So we had it a few prakim ago, where David HaMelech says, no, it's actually still coming. We haven't done it the thing, but you all know it. Karev Hashem l'chol karev. Hashem is close to anyone who calls on Him. So none of us can have the excuse that I'm not big enough, I'm not great enough, I haven't done enough mitzvahs. But anyone, Karasi b'chol leiv, who turns to Hashem with his whole full heart, Hashem will answer him. And and if you look at the second pasuk, which is very similar. Karasicha, I call to you, Hashem, Hashem, save me, ve'eshmerai desecha, and I will guard, I will keep your edus. So we normally just translate ve'eshmera edesecha. I'll keep your testimonies. I'll keep your mitzvahs. So say that the chida that edesecha, which we always translate as your testimonies, actually also means your jewelry. Okay, it's a guardian at the word, which means jewelry, and it says, what is it? Hashem, va'eshmara, I will guard, edesecha, your jewelry. What is Hashem's jewelry? Says the Chida, is our neshamas. Each of our neshama is a beautiful piece of jewelry that Hashem is letting us wear, like letting us use. And this is David HaMelech's promise to Hashem. He says, you answer my prayers, you save me from my troubles, ve'eshmara edesecha, and I will look after your neshama, the neshama that you've given me to look after, and I'll look after it in the best possible way. And I guess that is where we are going up to today. So, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
we will finish next
We'll push the flame.
Thank you, Yevgeny.
Thank you.
Rifki.
Thanks, Rifki. Be
Thank you.
better and have a good Shabbos.
Thank
Take
you, and
care.
you. I hope it's not
Thanks.
too much.
Shabbos.